My name is Paul Dolphin, retired medical practitioner, among other things. Aged, I think I'm 80, soon to be 88. You ask what sort of experiences you've had in life. Well, apart from medicine, of course. I think sailing has the most impact, and of all the 40 odd years I spent sailing, for better or worse, the things with the most impact are the disasters. And probably tell you about one trip where I had a fair number of disasters, but one in particular. But anyway, we were sailing at the end of a race to Devonport. We'd gone to the northwest corner of Tasmania, intending to sail over to the port of Grassy on King Island. It had been a most interesting trip, mainly fog and mist across the intervening water between Tasmania and King Island. And we nearly ended up on Castle Rock, I think it's called. And we didn't know where we were in this fog, and certainly had no radar. And happened to look up where there seemed to be a bit of sunlight higher up above the water, the mist line. And here we could see these rocks almost above us. But there was a great panic and scattering and starting of engines and swearing. But anyway, that was close enough. But coming into King Island, into Grassy, it's a very odd entrance because you have to head straight for a rock that sticks out in the middle of the small inlet or the bay called Bird Rock. And when you're fairly close to Bird Rock, you've got to make a right angle turn to the right, and that will take you up into the sheltered area. Anyway, this was the first time we'd ever been there, and because it had been a fairly strenuous sail, of the 5 on the boat, 3 were down below having a sleep, and Mike was on the helm, my son Mike, and I was doing the navigating and odd pulling on ropes and various other things that one does. Coming into Grassy, there was a cross sea and a very, very high swell, which was okay. The swell wasn't breaking, but it was pushing us sideways across the entrance. We managed to just almost get within the entrance, and a very large swell came. I'm down below just getting the charts out to check on bearings and entry, and large swell caught us, lifted the boat up, flung it sideways. I was thrown right across the cabin, and it was one of those moments where you seem to, everything happens in slow motion, but there's not much you can do about it because it's happening in reality so quickly. And I could see the stove structure, the fridge, the wooden structure to house fridge, stove, various other things, coming up towards me. I'm in mid-air, flying, moving towards it, and I quickly realised, as one does in a panic, that it was going to, I was going to hit my ribs onto this projecting corner, which it did. And I felt things crackle. There's no other description for it. And I fell down onto the cabin floor. Great yell, of course, and that woke the others. So they were able to get up and help Mike. But Mike, in the meantime, of course, is roaring for the charts to get to check on bearings and distance. And I managed to get up, I don't quite know how, and fish out the chart and give him some directions. But that was about as much as I could do. Blood pressure, I think, was going down at this time. Bit of a shock situation. Anyway, we managed to get inside, but I knew I'd broken a few ribs. And I thought, well, if I punctured the lung, and there's no one here in the port, it's totally deserted, it could be quite an interesting situation. So I just sat, and the others did all the work, and I'm sort of pondering on the infinite a bit this stage. And I thought, well, look, if anything nasty is going to happen, I may as well go reasonably happy. So I got one of them to pour me a whiskey. And I thought, oh well, which actually is bad medical advice. But in that situation, other things come into contention. So I had one whiskey, then another. I thought, oh, the hell with it, I'll have a third. So I was actually quite well settled. As long as I didn't move, it was okay. And I found that if you took a deeper breath as you could, and then held your breath with some force, that stabilised the ribs so that they didn't grate. And the high points came when we had to get me up the steep wharf side of the wharf. So I managed to get into the bosun's chair, and with a couple up top, the top of the wharf, they pulled me up in this bosun's chair. It is amazing how you cope when you have to. I eventually got back, I flew back to Melbourne, where I just virtually went to bed. One last thing just to end. I rode back home by taxi, of course, and lovely old Italian chap living across the road, a good old family man with numerous grandchildren, all the rest of it, and I'm limping, getting myself out of the car bit by bit. They came up, they said, asked me, what's the matter? And I explained, I've got a few broken ribs. And he looked me up and down, and very, very experienced eye, and he said, yeah, broken ribs, huh? Well, you cannot be a very good husband now, can you?